The 2025 NFL Draft just finished not too long ago, but there's still some people that are trying to make up their minds when it comes to what the Lions did in the draft. But when it comes to one such player, I'm telling you right now, he is a diamond in the rough waiting to be polished, and we're going to talk about it. So stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, folks, obviously, we all know the draft is officially done. It's over with. And I'm telling you this right now, while the draft might be over, that does not mean that the 2025 season for the Detroit Lions and the subsequent adventure that's going to follow with it is done. On the contrary, it's only just beginning. Obviously, we know comes, the off-season events such as rookie camp, OTAs, training camp, the whole 9 yards. But before we get to that, many Lions fans, like I said, they're still trying to figure out, they're still trying to come to a conclusion in some cases as to what to make of the new additions we've acquired during the draft. Now, a good bunch of Lions fans were extremely upset and or disappointed over this year's selections, which mainly centers around the fact that for the Lions fans that are in this group, they're upset, they're disappointed, betrayed, whatever the case might be, because the Lions did not draft a top edge rusher when they had multiple opportunities to do so. However, to have this negative attitude, as I've talked about a little bit already, it's not only destructive to the whole process, but it completely overlooks and it disregards the beast that the Lions actually did find in the 6th round out of Boise State, and that's Ahmed Hazenine. Now, there are some fans that will and do consider the pick of Hazenine to be a poor one when the Lions could have had guys like Mike Green, they could have had Jack Sawyer, they could have had Josiah Stewart, Shamar Stewart, Langdon Jackson, or a whole bunch of other guys. But I'm going to tell you this right now. Excuse me. If all you want to do is base your entire opinion, is base your thought about this pick just because of the fact that, Hazenine is not a name brand player. He's not a name recognizable player versus all these other guys we've talked about, then, you're kind of doing yourself a severe disjustice. You're doing yourself a shortchanging because you're not analyzing, you're not actually looking at what Hazenine as a player has to offer. I mean, just before you get into anything about the physical, the statistical, the analytical, whatever the case might be, there's the actual person himself. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I look at Hazenine and I see a guy that fits exactly with what the culture of the Detroit Lions is. Hard worker, absolutely a gritty player, very tough, loves to play football. He's a team player, and again, on top of that, I love his faith, and on top of that, I said it before and I'll say it again. The video that was caught of him during the process of the actual phone call with the Detroit Lions when he found out he was getting drafted, about how he told Coach Campbell, he's like, listen, I would die out on a field for you. I mean, it's like he just fits exactly what the Lions are all about. I mean, you talk about the guys that the Lions drafted, and I'm obviously talking about Hazenine here, but I'm talking about all the guys they drafted. They all fit that particular characteristic to a T. Now, some people are going to be like, well, that's all great, fine, grand, and glorious, David, but that's not what we care about as much. We care about a guy that can go out on the field and actually get the results we're looking for. Okay, fine. Well, let's talk about that here really quickly. First, let's analyze, Hazenine from a physical standpoint as far as height and weight, his combine results, things of that nature. And then let's compare him. Like, seriously, let's compare him to the other guys that everybody's, that, you know, in this particular camp of being butthurt, have their knickers in a twist and all this other nonsense. Let's compare him. Let's do an honest to goodness, straight up comparison. So let's take a look at Hazenine. Hazenine at the NFL, scouting combine was listed at 6'2" and 3/8 of an inch at 267 pounds. He ran a 40 time of 4.77, had a 10-yard shuttle of 1.7, had a 32.5-inch vertical, a 9'5" broad, and bench pressed 27 times. Okay, that's what we have as far as baseline. That's Hazenine. Now, here's what I'm going to do for you. To try and make sure we can keep this episode rolling along, but at the same time giving you guys all the information, I'm going to put a spreadsheet up that's going to show pretty much all the other guys that people would have preferred that we had drafted. Carter, Green, Pierce, Jackson, Sawyer, Scorton, Stewart, and Izuruku. All of those guys. Take a look at this. You're going to notice something really, really quickly. Virtually almost nobody was able or did all the things that, Hazenine did. The closest that anybody got was Pierce and Jackson. Everybody else pretty much either did not perform in any of the drills as far as the scouting combine is concerned, or even at a pro day, but none of them actually did all the same things that Hazenine did. Hazenine did the 40, he did the 10-yard shuttle, he did the vertical, he did the broad, he did the bench. Nobody else on that list did all of those. Now, what this ought to show you from that spreadsheet compared to what Hazenine did is it ought to show you in terms of physical measurements that only really two of the guys were substantially taller than Hazenine, but otherwise, most guys were smaller than him. I mean, the only guy that's even close to what the size difference is, or as far as the weight is concerned, is Landon Jackson. He's at 264. Hazenine was at 267. But more importantly, save Jackson as far as the size is concerned, as far as the weight. I mean, the way I look at it is that, hey, you know what? When you take a look at everything else, Hazenine outperformed Pierce in terms of the vertical. He was pretty much on par with, virtually all the other areas as well. So it's like, hey, you know what? I'm not too concerned as far as the physical aspects are concerned, as far as the physical measurements are concerned, as far as how Hazenine did versus everybody else, because it's like, wait a minute here. When nobody else really did much of anything as far as physical testing, it's like, okay, if your baseline is Hazenine and you're taking a look at everybody else that pretty much did, nothing, you really don't have anything to compare to. So, okay, in that aspect, Hazenine at least gave the Lions more information as far as physical testing is concerned. So that's already a plus factor for Hazenine. But obviously, people are going to be like, well, that's just one component. What about the statistical stuff? Because the statistical stuff is going to make the difference, right? Well, we shall see. I just talked about how Hazenine, compared to all those guys, looked substantially better because, well, he actually did all those things. Here's something that's really going to shock you. I decided to say, how about we compare Hazenine to how Hutch did when he was coming out of college into the NFL in 2022? Wait a minute here. Here's where this is going to really blow your mind. Hazenine was similar to Hutch in terms of 40 time, 10-yard split. He was also similar to him in terms of bench reps. The only thing that Hutch actually did better than Hazenine was the vertical. He had a 3.5-inch better vertical, but he didn't do the broad jump, which means since there's no information to compare, Hazenine did better there as well. So it's like, okay here, Hazenine was either similar or better to Hutch as far as the physical measurements, the physical components, in pretty much 4 out of the 5 categories. 3 of which he actually did better because of the physical measurements or was similar. 1 he actually did better, and 1 where Hutch did better. Now, Hutch is obviously taller than Hazenine, but Hazenine is bigger in terms of weight. But yet, Hazenine ran a similar 40 time compared to Hutch, even though Hutch is taller, which means a longer stride, and he's lighter. That's that's pretty substantial information to have access to. Now, let's talk about the statistical comparison, the statistical analysis. I said, okay, let's take a look at Hazenine's college stats. Hazenine's college stats, he played in 49 games. He had 119 total tackles between solo and combined, 35 tackles for loss, 24 total sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and 1 fumble recovery. Okay there. So that's Hazenine. How did Hutch do? Hutch in 43 games, so only 6 less, had 159 tackles combined between solo and, assisted, whatever. But he only had 28 tackles for loss, only 18 and a half sacks. He did actually have 10 pass defenses. He had 4 forced fumbles, and he had 2 fumble recoveries. So wait a minute here. Hazenine only plays 6 more games in college, but yet he had 7 more tackles for loss. Plus, on top of that, he had almost 7 more sacks than Hutch. That's very, very interesting, in my opinion. Now, like I did with the physical measurements, let's compare Hazenine to the rest of the guys from this draft class that everybody wanted to get their hands on. So take a look at this. What you're going to notice when you take a look at these numbers is that there's only 2 guys that have more sacks over their college careers than Hazenine does. And on top of that, there's only 3 guys that have more tackles for losses than Hazenine did in their college careers. That's very, very interesting. So think about it. All of those guys from the draft, when it comes to it, since everybody wants to talk about edge rusher, the ability to get into the backfield, the ability to make tackles for losses, the ability to impact the quarterback, get sacks, the whole 9 yards. Hazenine literally did better than everybody, save 3 in tackles for losses, and save 2 in sacks. And think about it here. Carter, Green, Pierce, most of these guys, they went in the upper rounds. I mean, think about that. They're going in rounds like 3 or higher. We got Hazenine in the 6th round. So from a statistical standpoint, you got a guy in the 6th round who statistically is either better or mostly similar to the rest of the guys that were drafted multiple rounds ahead of him. I mean, call me crazy, but I think that's pretty damn smart by Brad Holmes. Because I will say this, while Hazenine is a 6th round pick, the production that he showed while he was at Boise State shows that he is a player with an immense upside and an insane ceiling. So, okay, that's the physical component measurements. That's the statistical measurements in comparison. But obviously, that brings us to the last part, which is the analytics. When I do something, I go all out, folks. I literally do everything I can to give you guys the most information. So, once again, let's do Hazenine compared to Hutch in their last year at college. And then let's do Hazenine compared to all the other guys in their last year at college. So let's take a look at Hazenine. When you take a look at him, his defensive grade last year was at an 80.7, which ranked 30th. Rush defense was at a 76.9, which ranked 41st. His pass rush grade was a 78.8, which was tied 44th. His pass rush win rate was at 16.8%, which was tied 22nd. And his stop percentage, which is run stop percentage, was at 6%, which was tied for 100th. Now, let me put this out there. This is out of 248 qualifying edge rushers, of which they had to complete at least 50% of the total number of snaps by the maximum guy that was an edge rusher. So when you think about it from that perspective, Hazenine's defensive grade was in the top 12%. Rush defense grade, top 17%. Pass rush grade, top 18%. Pass rush win rate, top 9%. And even his stop percentage, even though it was tied for 100th, was still in the top 40%. 4 out of the 5 categories, Hazenine was in the top 20% of all damn edge rushers. And again, we got him in the 6th round. Now, wait a minute here. How did Hutch do when he came out of college? Well, obviously, Hutch was a beast. Hutch was a damn beast. And it shows in his analytics. The year he came out of college, he was number 1 in the defense as far as defensive grading for edge rushers, ranked 5th in terms of rush defense, ranked 2nd in terms of pass rush, ranked 3rd in terms of pass rush win rate, and tied 19th in terms of stop percentage for rushes. So, okay, obviously Hutch coming out of college in his year was one of, if not the best edge rusher in his class. But Hazenine is no damn slouch. I'm going to say this right now. Hazenine, if I was to take a look at him just from a sheer statistical component, and also based upon all the other information so far, I would say he probably could have gotten away with going in the 3rd or 4th round. He probably could have gotten away with that. The fact that he slid all the way to the 6th round and the Lions were able to get him, dude, I call that a freaking steal. That is a massive steal and a great value pick for the Lions. Now, obviously, as I've done with the other 2 times, I'm going to show you guys an Excel spreadsheet that's going to show all the other guys' analytical grades and, stuff. And what you're going to see here is this, that yes, everybody else virtually does better in terms of the rankings and in terms of the grades compared to Hazenine. Okay, that's fine. But let me put this out there for you. To say that Hazenine is not a good edge rusher because we got him in the 6th round compared to all these other guys we could have gotten in the 1st, the 2nd, the 3rd, or 4th, whatever the case might be. I'm just going to put this out there for you. Again, do those guys match up with all of the other things that the Lions are looking for? The character, the grit, the toughness, the cultural fit. Well, I'm going to put it to you this way. I'm not going to say that they don't. But the fact that the Lions specifically wanted Hazenine, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I could be wrong, but correct me here, did or did not the Lions actually trade back up to go and get Hazenine? I could be wrong there. But either way, the point of the matter is that when they had all these other guys that they could have gone after, and yet they passed on them, even though the analytics are better, statistically, Hazenine did better than virtually all of them. And he actually did all the physical testing when most of them didn't do any of the physical testing. So, let me just put this out there for you. The guy is a culture fit. The guy is a character fit. The guy did all of the physical testing that was mandated for him pretty much when everybody else didn't. Statistically, he's better coming out of college than virtually almost everybody else that was on the board. And on top of that, even though the analytics don't show it, again, we don't know everything that Brad Holmes knew. Because I guarantee you, he probably sat down and he talked with a lot of these guys, if not all of them. And I guarantee you, part of the conversations that they had was, hey, is this guy going to be a culture fit for us? Is this guy going to fit in like a glove for us? Is he going to be a hard worker? Is he going to be gritty? Is he going to embody the Detroit Lions mindset? Some of them might, some of them might not. But again, since we don't know what was on the board for the Lions, since we don't know how they were ranking and measuring players, there's no way to effectively know that. But it is very telling that the Lions drafted Hazenine when they could have drafted a whole bunch of other guys. They chose not to. Now, I'm going to say this. Some people are going to be like, well, that's just pretty poor logic. That's just pretty poor reasoning. Really? Let me ask you this question here. Take a look at all the guys that got drafted in front of Hazenine. You had 2 guards, you had a wide receiver, and you also had a defensive tackle. Most of those guys are not going to be huge cap implications for the most part. Guards are not going to get paid as much as, offensive tackles, left tackles, quarterbacks, running backs, the whole 9 yards. Defensive tackles, depending upon if they get really up there, they could. Wide receivers, same thing. I'm not saying Tesla's going to ever be like that. Tesla's probably going to be a pretty solid, good player for us, but he's never going to be somebody that we have to worry about paying a $100 million contract to, probably. But when it comes to edge rushers are almost always overpaid and given a huge premium because of how hard it is to find good ones. Let me put it out there for you. Let's just say hypothetically here, if I had the ability to take a look at how much money in terms of cap space guys like Carter, Green, Pierce, and all those other guys that went in the upper rounds were getting compared to how much money the Lions are going to be paying Hazenine, even though Hazenine was producing better or similar numbers to most of them, I would say the Lions made out like bandits in terms of the salary cap component. And think about this. That's less money that the Lions are going to have to pay out for him over the next 4 years compared to these other teams that are going to have to pay out substantially more. And on top of that, just to bring this back into the salary cap conversation really quickly before I end this, how many people wanted to be all butthurt about the fact that we handed out a massive contract to Kirby Joseph and somehow that was going to be a huge problem for us later on down the road because we still needed to pay all these guys? But yet what Brad Holmes did was address areas of need by making sure not only he got the best player available at the time that he had, but he made sure that he wasn't going to be giving out these picks to players that were going to require massive contracts, more or less. Guards are not going to require massive contracts for the most part. Wide receivers taken in the third round are not going to require massive contracts for the most part. Defensive tackles, it's going to depend on how well they play. I don't know how well Tyleik Williams is going to play, but I'd be willing to bet you this, he's probably not going to be able to get away with asking for a $125, $150 million contract when it's his time to. It'd probably be closer to about 85, 90 to 100 million, which again, that's saving you money. So it's like, again, there's this balancing act of, okay, do you want more draft capital to potentially get those high-end picks, or would you rather be smart about how you go about it so that way you can make sure that, hey, not only are we still getting good to great talent, but at the same time, we're making sure we're preserving our salary cap for when we have to make decisions like, extending Hutchinson, extending Jamo, extending Branch, extending Laporta, extending Gibbs. That's what most people are not thinking about when they take a look at picks like this. Brad Holmes is trying to balance both sides of the equation here, and it's not an easy thing to do. But when you're able to find a guy like Hazenine in the 6th round that is able to produce at similar levels to the top guys in the draft, dude, that's brilliant. And I'm telling you, I look at Hazenine and I'm like, dude, I see this guy as a sleeping monster. He is that literal definition of a diamond in the rough that's just waiting for a little polish, waiting for a little good coaching, and I expect he is going to freaking explode onto the NFL. I don't know if it's going to be this year or next year, but like I said, he's probably going to be my most exciting player to watch when training camp comes because I expect that he's going to do a lot of good things for the Lions. And based upon the information I found, there's nothing in my mind to play doubt to that. But anyway, folks, I believe I've presented the evidence. I believe that I've told you all what I think about this young man, and I really am excited about him, and I wish him the best, absolutely best. So having said that, I'm going to end this episode and say thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things, like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, I want to highly encourage y'all, please make sure you hit that bell notification icon so that way you never miss any more content I push out. Also want to encourage y'all, please, to share the content, share here on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, share anywhere and everywhere you possibly can. And with that, I hope I was able to give you guys some more information that can help inform you guys about Ahmed Hazenine. I really am super excited about him. I think Brad Holmes knocked it out of the park with this guy. I think he's going to be a great pick for us, and we got great value for him. Truly, truly try my best to do this with every single episode that I can, whether it's the first episode you guys watch of me or you guys have been watching me for years. Hope you all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.